Here I go again, another live. And it's interesting. My inside were like before was like whispering, go live, share about this subject. And then I met another part of me that was saying, oh, this is too much. That's actually why I decided to do it. So I want to share. It's something I actually did a video on OnlyFans, sharing how the energy that is used for violation is actually a potent, potentially, actually in its purity, beautiful source of energy that we need to see more of in the world. In archetypes language, it's often used, referred to as dark masculine, and it's energy that penetrates. And there's many ways of penetrating. Penetrate with truth is one of them. So anytime something is getting in through our system, it's a kind of penetration, and we are experiencing this a lot in life. And I believe that we really need to have more of the healthy, dark, masculine energy. And I kind of want to do this when I say masculine, because the idea of something being masculine or feminine is really just a separation language, and it's limiting. However, it's beautiful labels in order to be able to communicate about specific flavors or perspectives of the same energy, because everything is actually the same if we consider oneness. Okay, I'm speaking very I'm speaking very with a lot of maybe complexity now, so I will try and get back to sharing from a little bit more simpler way. So for instance, I just posted how there's a lot of men who's coming to my inbox and they're not taking no for no. I give them a redirection and they just dismiss it, or for instance, hi, even if I don't respond. And a huge reason why I created the course for men and why I want to do even more work with men and for men is because I see how this energy is actually this beautiful ability. Like, it's a strong energy that wants to penetrate. It wants to have a direction. It wants to be of service. And I would so love to see more of this in the world, connected to the heart and connected to truth and honesty and being an authentic self. And while someone just shared with me that they don't like the authentic, they prefer genuine, I'd love to hear if you have any comments on what you prefer, or maybe you have another word. And I'm excited, speaking a bit quick. I will try to speak a little bit slower. But this is what happens to me when I meet this energy. I so want this to grow more. I want this energy to be more when it comes to this penetrative, strong energy. But again, so in my perspective, any and every energy, instinct or desire and judgment and everything, like any kind of energy, in my perspective in the world, has a gift. And then it also has a shadow. And anything that is in the shadow is when it's not connected to the heart. It's when it's coming from an unclear space. So, what am I trying to share is that, so actually a lot of people, and this tends to happen even more with men, but people in general, because I experience this too, because I got a very strong dark masculine. And what happens is that when this is not connected to the whole inner union or the heart, it becomes a violation. It's a different thing when we connect it to the heart. So when this energy is connected to the heart, it starts to feel into consent, and it starts to feel into, it's a soft penetration rather than a hard penetration where it's not taking a consent into consideration. And this has been also a huge journey for me. And if we're talking about, for instance, another system that is again just labels, being a projector, my energy is penetrating. And it's been a huge journey for me, and it continues to be this journey of learning how my energy is penetrating other people. And in human design, as a projector, what we're taught is that it's so important with consent to be invited. And I think maybe that's why I am also so extra passionate about supporting others in starting to understand that this energy that can be quite negative and destructive if it's not welcome is actually a massive gift when it's yielded and used in a good way. And for instance, one of the most common fantasies for male bodies is to rape, and one of the most common fantasies apparently for women is to be raped. And this has nothing to do with actual rape. It's about the energies that we are desiring to want. Where can you find a language? So for instance, it's about being penetrated and into surrender or to be of service. That's actually the core. It's like when you go deep enough into the rabbit hole of those fantasies and that energy, it's actually of being in service, as wanting to penetrate and give direction, give truth, and is that desire of being directed. And well, this is another kind of long discussion. It's one of the many things I will dive into in the course for men that starts in end of January, and it's also something I dive into with clients one-to-one. And I am just now thinking, how can I make this even more accessible? And it's actually why in the beginning I was starting my OnlyFans. So it was two things. It was to have a place where I could share more of my own content without being censored, and then I turned it also using for my own shadow work. And what I was also doing is that I was also giving a lot of videos and advice about, for instance, these kinds of subjects. And what happened about 2 weeks ago is that suddenly I knew that, you know what, I'm finished with that kind of use of OnlyFans. And it came for me from two things. One is that I felt like I had done my own personal shadow work when it comes to using OnlyFans. And for instance, the reason why I created OnlyFans was because I was judging people who had it. And, you know, I call myself an energetic engineer of sensual shadow work. So for me, it's really important to be in integrity. So anytime I am meeting my own judgment, of negative judgment that is, of something, I get curious and explore it, and I look to how I can own it. And that's also how it is for me when it comes to, for instance, people coming into my inbox and trying to violate me with their energy, as in not taking no for a no and sending me unsolicited dick pics and these things. For me, then, it's always an invitation to go inside of me and finding my own echo of shame and guilt, and where do I get defensive, or where do I get reactive or even aggressive if someone is trying to violate me. And okay, that's another rabbit hole. So many fun rabbit holes to go into. I don't know, am I making any kind of sense? I am just throwing so many things out there. There's like lots of open endings, and if anyone is watching have any questions, please feel free to share them. I want to add a little bit of the sad part is when I am posting screenshots like I just did earlier about how men are in my DM, and also some women, is that what tends to happen is actually the men that this does not apply to often take this as an internal criticism and can potentially actually push down even more of this beautiful dark masculine energy they have inside. And it's little bit of a problem when I'm addressing these things, is that I keep asking me, it's like, what am I co-creating by sharing this? Yeah, it's something I'm asking now out loud too. It's like, am I potentially giving more shame than creating something other? And it's something I really want to go even deeper with. And because, for instance, in a session with me, I do not meet any kind of repercussion. Everything is allowed in my space in a session. And however, I need to also be aware of my own energy. I cannot have 10 to 20 men every day that's messaging me, and I cannot take, it takes a lot of energy, and at certain days is actually 400. And it's a bit sad for me when I often just have to go directly to either ignoring or blocking, because what often happens is if I answer is that often it leads to those kinds of where the man is not taking no for a no, and then it leads to them sending some kind of angry outburst to me or etc. And I spend energy on it. I want to create resources that are easy available for as many as possible, because I want everyone to have more self-love and joy. And I'm trying to look at the comments. Yeah, so it's it's kind of like this delicate kind of dance. So it's like, at the same time, sometimes we have to speak out against what isn't good. However, if we're doing that, we are also tapping and giving more energy to what we do not want in some ways. And it's also at the same time, what am I here to create? And I want to have more essential self-love in the world. I want more people to enjoy their own self in all the ways, whether that's actually crying, to orgasms, to laughing more, to having more connection, to having more sex, to I want this for everyone. And as long as I want it. I'm not trying to force anything on anyone. We have different sexual drives, and we have different sensual drives too. And okay, what else? There's so much aliveness in me right now. At the same time, if I'm sitting here having a monologue, that is not my intention. So yeah, I just want to round up with coming back to that. The challenge is that often when I'm sharing these kinds of feedback or what doesn't work, is that what often happens is that the people, or in this case the men, who are not doing this often feels a withdrawal, like, oh no, don't want to be like that. And that is such that's shame, because I want more of this. I don't want less, but I want it in a healthy way, if that makes sense. And sadly, what often happens is that the ones who are maybe need the message, they don't get it. So I'm asking myself today, for anyone who's watching, like, how can I be more of service to what I want to see? So if you are a man or identify as a man, what you feel, how could I serve more? Like, what kind of resources would you look for? What kind of support? What would have you have an incentive to join a course or do sessions, etc.? Or maybe I can support you in sending you to a man's group, or a man who's doing this kind of work, if you prefer that. To any kind of other genders who's watching, I would also love to hear more about what you find challenging. And do you see any solutions? Have you seen anything that does work? And I want to add that, you know, that's actually in the course. So the women's course starts in the beginning of January, and the men's course starts in end of January. And it's going to be a part. So they're separate courses, but there's going to be a mutual part. And I want to create a space where, you know, we can meet and can we find mutual understanding? Can we find more compassion and resolutions? And yeah, that's what I want to see more of in the world. I want to see more of people, you know, I don't want to see less. And the beautiful aspect is that anything that is a shadow is always hiding our gift. Anything and everything. So where you have the most shame and guilt in yourself is where your biggest gifts are. Yeah, you know, imagine if all of us always had that in the back of our minds. Okay, I have a comment. Your authentic self showed up here. I wasn't sure what you were trying to achieve. Thank you. Well, I would love to hear if it's a little bit more clear now. However, it is a challenge, you know, when it's something that is going to be a course of 8 weeks, how to make it like super clear. And however, it is a redirection for me to become even better at talking into what I do want to see, and less of what I don't want to see. That is something I'm really sitting with today. And yeah, if anyone is watching this, please share, even if it's just replay, because if you do that, then more people will get this message. So if you find this message, any of what I'm saying makes sense, you know, you're supporting to get the message out there. And yeah, and I would love to hear your shares, reflections, or questions. And I prefer if it's in the public comments, so everyone can partake in it. And if it's something that is difficult for you to share in public, you're free to send me a direct message. Just also, when you do that, be direct, you know. Don't start with hi and nothing else, or how are you? Go, hi Marta, this is my ... Because that way I get to use my energy for service and support. Mwah!